welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast. The podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it, and also with food, and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman. So in this episode, I want to talk to you about the word sugar. Because one of the most common questions that I get when I tell people that I don't eat sugar is, well, do you eat fruit? Or what do you mean that you don't eat sugar? What is sugar for you? So I thought I'd put this to rest and to kind of give a little mini course about sugar, but also not just as an intellectual exercise to define the word sugar, but just to show how easy it is when we use a word and it's not actually clear what that word really means to us. So let me tell you a little story about one time when we were on holiday in Cuba, and we were in the bus on the way to our hotel, and we passed by all these fields, and I realized that they were all sugarcane fields, and it was kind of like, and I was an adult at this time, and it was kind of like I realized for the first time in my life that the white crystals that we use as sugar actually come from a plant and actually come from whole fields of these plants of sugarcane, and that we don't actually think of where our food comes from, much less where sugar comes from. And one time at the hotel, they brought out this old machine that crushes sugarcane, and they let us have a go at like turning the handle, putting a piece of sugarcane in there, turning the handle, getting the juice out, and I think they mixed it up with rum and stuff for us to drink. But it really got me thinking about the origin, the biological, the natural origin of sugar, because everything starts out naturally, including sugar. The problem is not the sugar cane or sugar beet in North America, but it's the processing that the sugar cane or the sugar beet goes through to make sugar. Now, if you go on some kind of website like sugar.org, they will give you a very prettied up version of what sugar processing is all about. So they say whether sugar comes from sugar beets or sugar cane, the purification process is similar for each plant, and the result is the same pure sucrose. So they use this word purification and pure to make us feel that the product that comes out is pure, right? What they say also is that one difference in processing between the two plants is that sugar beets are refined at a single facility, which is a sugar beet factory, and sugar cane is refined at two facilities where the processing starts at a raw sugar factory and finishes at a sugar refinery. And that's a very nice way of actually saying that whether the sugar comes from sugar beet or sugar cane, it's highly processed. There are many, many steps in processing of sugar, and at least a dozen steps, whether it comes from sugar cane or sugar beet. And basically, however much the sugar industry tries to make us think that the white crystals are pure and lovely, the reality is completely different. In fact, the processing of sugarcane or sugar beets is a huge industrial endeavor and creates a lot of pollution, takes up a lot of arable land, uses up tons of mechanized systems, doesn't do much good for the soil quality, and basically employs low-paid workers for a lot of very, very tough work. So basically, for sugarcane, you've got the crushing, the milling, then that gives you the raw juice, and then they have a process called liming with lime. Then they heat it up, they clarify it with all kinds of chemical products. Then you get the thin juice that then they evaporate, and then they crystallize it, and they take off the molasses, And what you're left with after that is the raw sugar. And it may say raw, but it's still gone through all this processing. And a lot of the processing involves chemical product. And for sugar beets, you have machines that slice them. Then you've got the raw juice that needs to be heated and limed and clarified, carbonated, filtered, and then the thin juice has to be evaporated. And then you have crystallization and centrifugation where the molasses are taken out. And then what you have at the end of it is the white sugar. So it's not that pure. Even though the sugar crystals are white, it's far from being a pure process. And it's really a very industrialized way of creating the sugar crystals from, yes, what used to be a plant, beets or sugar canes. So in marketing, of course, they can say that it's from a natural source because it is. But the source is natural enough, but what they've done to the sugar is far from natural. And they can also say that sugar is vegetarian and vegan, which is true. It's plant-based. And again, it's not the plant that's the problem. It's what they've done to it to create sugar. So there are different forms of sugar. There's the refined or processed sugar that we find on the table and in food products. And then there's naturally occurring sugar in foods like fruit. And we use the term sugar for many, many kinds of different substances. So sucrose is the real word for sugar, but you do have basic simple sugars, which are also known under the terms of dextrose, fructose, galactose, glucose, lactose, maltose, and sucrose. And then you've got the solid or the granulated sugars like beet sugar and brown sugar and cane juice crystals, which you may find on some labels or some ingredients lists. You've got cane sugar, castor sugar, coconut sugar. You've got corn syrup solids, crystalline fructose, date sugar, demerara sugar, dextrin, golden sugar, muscovado sugar, raw sugar, sucanat, turbinado sugar, yellow sugar. They're pretty much all types of solid or granulated sugars. And then you've got the liquid or the syrup sugars like agave nectar or agave syrup, which can be seen as a healthy alternative, but it's really just another type of sugar. You've got barley malt, blackstrap molasses, brown rice syrup. You have caramel on lots of ingredients lists, corn syrup, evaporated cane juice, fruit juice. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You've got fruit juice concentrate, golden syrup, high fructose corn syrup or HFCS, invert sugar, malt syrup, molasses, rice syrup, sorghum syrup. All of these are liquid forms of sugar. And keep in mind that even if you do spot any of these names listed on a label, that it's not automatically a bad substance or a no-go. It's the amount of the sugar that counts as much as the type of sugar. But it's good to know as consumers that any of these terms are really just synonyms for sugar. Hope this has helped. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and I'll talk about fruit and other types of natural sugars in the next episode. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.